Good day, my friends. Have you ever noticed how some plants seem to settle into a garden so quietly that you almost forget about them? And then one day they surprise you? I was standing outside early today with a warm cup of coffee, the kind of day where the air feels soft and the ground still holds a bit of coolness. The garden was just waking up. No rush, no noise, just that slow, steady rhythm that feels so comforting. And as I stood there, my eyes drifted toward a small tree near the fence, one I hardly paid much attention to when I first planted it. It made me think about how often the most rewarding plants aren't the flashy ones. They're the quiet, dependable ones, the kind that don't ask for much but give back year after year in their own gentle way. Today, I'd like to sit with you for a while and talk about one of those plants. It's called serviceberry. Some people know it as juneberry or shadbush, and over the years it's become one of those steady companions in the garden that you come to appreciate more and more with time. And if you enjoy these peaceful moments together, I'd really appreciate it if you took a second to like the video and subscribe to Golden Garden Days. It helps keep this calm little corner growing, and I'm always glad to have you here. Now let's take a slow walk through the garden and talk about why this humble plant has quietly earned its place. As the years go by, many of us begin to look at our gardens a little differently. There was a time when we might have enjoyed experimenting with all sorts of plants, trying new things, tending to delicate varieties, putting in long hours just to keep everything looking just right. But over time, something shifts. We begin to value ease. We appreciate plants that settle in without complaint, that don't demand constant attention, and that still bring beauty and purpose to our space. It's not about doing less out of necessity. It's about choosing what feels right, choosing calm over effort and reliability over fuss. That's where a plant like the serviceberry gently finds its place. It doesn't call attention to itself in the way some plants do. You won't see oversized blooms or dramatic colors that stop you in your tracks. Instead, it offers something quieter, something that unfolds slowly across the seasons. In early spring, just as the garden begins to stir again, it's one of the first to greet the season. Soft white flowers appear along its branches, light, airy, almost delicate. They don't last forever, but that's part of their charm. You notice them, you enjoy them, and then they pass, making room for what comes next. As the weeks move along and the weather warms, small green berries begin to form. At first, they're easy to overlook, but gradually, almost without you noticing day by day, they deepen in color, shifting into shades of red, and then finally into that rich, deep purple that tells you they're ready. And that moment, when you reach out and pick one for the first time each season, it's a quiet kind of reward. The taste is gentle and sweet, with a soft hint of something almost nutty, like almond. Not overpowering, not sharp, just pleasant and familiar. The kind of flavor that feels right at home in a simple bowl or sprinkled over something warm. You may have seen bold claims before, phrases like berries forever or plant once and never worry again. And while those ideas can sound appealing, the truth is a little more grounded and, in its own way, more meaningful. The serviceberry doesn't rush. It takes its time. In the first year or two, it may not seem like much is happening. You'll see leaves, perhaps a few flowers, but nothing that feels especially remarkable. And that's often the stage where people lose interest. But if you give it that time, just a couple of seasons to settle its roots and find its place, you begin to see the change. By the third year, sometimes a bit sooner, depending on conditions, it starts to offer more flowers, more fruit, a fuller presence in the garden. And from there, it becomes something you can depend on. Each year, as the seasons turn, it follows its quiet pattern. Spring blossoms, early summer berries. Then as the year winds down, the leaves shift into warm tones, gold orange, sometimes even a soft red, before finally falling and returning to the soil below. Even in winter, when everything else has gone still, there's a simple beauty in its smooth gray bark and gentle shape against the sky. There's something comforting about that kind of consistency, and what makes it even more special is how little it asks in return. Serviceberry is a plant that fits easily into the natural rhythm of a garden. It doesn't need perfect soil. It doesn't expect constant feeding or trimming. It simply grows slowly and steadily, adapting to its surroundings. Its roots reach down where they need to, drawing moisture even when the surface feels dry. It's not easily bothered by the small ups and downs that can affect more delicate plants. For many gardeners, especially those who prefer a quieter pace these days, that kind of resilience is something to truly appreciate. Once it's established, usually after those first couple of years, it becomes largely self-sufficient. You won't find yourself needing to fertilize it every season. You won't be out there regularly shaping it just to keep it under control. In most cases, it holds its form naturally, growing into a balanced, open shape that looks right at home wherever you've planted it. A simple layer of mulch around the base can help in the early years, keeping the soil cool and holding in moisture. But beyond that, there's very little required. Even the leaves it drops in autumn serve a purpose. As they settle into the soil, or they begin to break down, feeding the ground in a quiet, natural way. Over time, this builds healthier soil beneath the plant, without any effort from us at all. It's a slow, steady exchange. The plant gives and the earth gives back. The berries themselves, though small, are one of the real joys. They're often compared to blueberries in size, but the flavor is a bit different, softer, a little more complex in its own subtle way. You can eat them straight from the branch, which is often the simplest and most satisfying way, but they also work beautifully in the kitchen. A small handful can be stirred into oatmeal in the morning. They can be baked into a simple pie or turned into a gentle homemade jam. Nothing complicated, just small additions that bring a bit of the garden indoors. And perhaps the nicest part is knowing that once the plant reaches maturity, it continues to offer this gift year after year. Not in overwhelming amounts, but in steady, reliable handfuls. Sometimes more, sometimes less, depending on the season, but always enough to remind you that it's there, quietly doing its part. Have you ever had a plant like that in your garden? One that didn't ask much, but over time became something you truly valued? I always enjoy hearing about those kinds of experiences. If one comes to mind, feel free to share it in the comments. Your stories often bring just as much warmth as the garden itself. If you find yourself thinking about adding a serviceberry to your garden, it's a lovely choice, especially if you're looking for something that settles in without asking too much from you. The first thing to consider is placement. Like many fruiting plants, it does best with a bit of sunlight. A spot that gets full sun will usually give you more berries, but it's quite forgiving and will still do well in partial shade. If your garden has a corner that receives gentle morning light or dappled sun through the day, that can be just right. It's also a plant that doesn't need an overwhelming amount of space. Many varieties grow to about 10 to 20 feet in height and width, but they tend to keep a soft, open shape rather than becoming dense or difficult to manage. It can sit comfortably along a fence, near a sitting area, or even as a quiet focal point where you can watch it change through the seasons. In those early stages, during the first year or two, a bit of attention goes a long way. Regular watering helps the roots establish. Nothing complicated, just making sure it doesn't dry out completely if the rains are light. About an inch of water a week is usually enough. Adding a layer of mulch around the base can make a real difference. Something simple like shredded bark works well. It helps keep moisture in the soil and reduces the need for frequent watering. Just remember to keep it a few inches away from the trunk so the plant can breathe. After that initial period, things become much easier. The plant begins to take care of itself in many ways. Its roots reach deeper, its structure becomes stronger, and your role becomes more of a quiet observer than a constant caretaker. When the berries begin to ripen, you might notice how quickly they change. One day they're still a bit firm and reddish, and before you know it, they've turned that deep purple and are ready to be picked. It's worth checking them regularly during that time because they don't wait long, and you're not the only one who notices. Birds are especially fond of them. You may find robins or cedar waxwings visiting, moving through the branches with surprising ease. Watching them can be just as enjoyable as harvesting the fruit yourself. There's something peaceful about seeing the garden shared in that way. If you'd like to keep more of the berries for yourself, a light netting draped over the plant can help. Nothing heavy or complicated, just enough to give you a fair share while still leaving a little for the visitors. There are also a few varieties you might come across, each with its own gentle qualities. Some, like Autumn Brilliance, are known for their rich fall colors, bringing warm tones into the garden as the season changes. Others, like Regent, stay a bit more compact, which can be helpful if space is limited. A local nursery or plant sale is often the best place to explore these options. The people there usually understand what grows well in your area and can point you toward a variety that will feel right at home. Over time, plants like this begin to feel familiar in a way that's hard to explain. They become part of your routine, part of your view, part of the passing of seasons. You notice when they bloom, when the berries appear, when the leaves begin to turn, and without realizing it, you begin to look forward to those small changes. Perhaps you have a plant like that already, something that's been with you for years, quietly marking time in your garden. If so, I'd truly enjoy hearing about it. Those little stories often carry the heart of gardening more than anything else. When I think back on my own experience with the serviceberry, what stands out most isn't just the fruit or the flowers. It's the feeling of patience it brings. You plant it, you give it a gentle start, and then you allow it the time it needs. There's no rushing it, no forcing it to produce before it's ready. And in that waiting, something steady begins to take shape. Year after year, it grows a little stronger. The branches fill out, the blossoms return, the berries come again, just as the warmth of summer begins to settle in. They're not overwhelming harvests, and they're not meant to be. They're simple, honest gifts. A handful picked on a quiet morning, a few shared with someone close. To a reminder that the garden doesn't always give in grand ways, but it gives in ways that matter. In many ways, that's what draws us back to the garden in the first place, not just for the results, but for the rhythm, the quiet consistency, the sense that something is growing alongside us, season after season. And sometimes it's the plants that ask the least from us that end up giving the most in return. Thank you for spending this time with me today. If this moment felt peaceful or brought back a memory of your own garden, you're always welcome to share it. And if you haven't already, subscribing to Golden Garden Days helps keep these gentle conversations going. You might also consider sharing this with someone who enjoys a slower, quieter kind of gardening. It's always nice to pass along something that brings a bit of calm. Until next time, take gentle care of your garden and of yourself. Be well, my friends.